stories to be told, treasures to be found, silver and gold, dollars and pounds, never worth more than the stories of a town.
Robert O'Hara Burke and William John Wills and a party of 16 men left Melbourne on an expedition to cross Australia from south to north in 1860. Burke had just proposed to a young actress by the name of Julia Matthews. She'd said no. This expedition was in part designed to impress her and win her heart. Burke was a relatively inexperienced explorer, but with Wills, they managed to reach the Gulf of Carpentaria in February 1861. The return journey was to be far less successful. Burke and Wills made it back to their base camp at Cooper's Creek and survived in the area for another 2 months before finally starving to death in tragic circumstances. When Burke's body was found, the pistol that lay clasped in his hand was inscribed, "Presented to Captain Burke by the residents of Beechworth, Victoria."
He met Julia here in the gold mining town of Beechworth. He was the superintendent for police between 1854 and 1858. He certainly had his work cut out for him. He was to prove to be far more successful in this role than he would be later on as an explorer in Central Australia.
Unrest and disorder were rife in the formative years of the Beechworth goldfields. The extra distance from Melbourne and especially racial resentment against the Chinese made the Beechworth fields an especially nasty place.
Burke's reputation as an honest and fair man grew. He protected the local Aboriginal people and the Chinese during a particularly bad period of persecution. He was generally a calming influence on the unruly goldfields. Thanks. But his reputation as an explorer is somewhat tarnished by an editorial published in the local press, which claims he couldn't even find his way between home and the pub. And I quote, "He could not tell the north from the south in broad daylight." Hardly a fitting recommendation for somebody who was preparing to cross the continent.
Although Burke's romance had ended in disaster, he did have an eye for talent. Julia Matthews was just 15 when they first met in Beechworth. She went on to become the very first Australian-trained singer to perform at the Covent Garden Opera House in London.
Oh, fantastic. That was good, wasn't it?
Fabulous.
Okay, so where do we go?
Well, you can go this way.
Yep.
You go up around the town this way, or you can head down around the gorge and round over there where there's some wonderful viewing. Thanks, Scotty.
Thank you.
See you around.
The Beechworth gold rush was sparked by a shepherd named Meldrin in 1852. He'd lost a sheep along Spring Creek here, but he discovered something far more valuable. Within a year, 8,000 people were panning for gold in the district.
1853 saw the government survey the new township, and the surveyor in charge named the town Beechworth after his birthplace in England. At its peak, there were 30 to 40,000 people living and working in the goldfields around Beechworth. As larger companies started to take over mining operations, dynamite became one of the preferred tools of trade. It was decided that for public safety, the dynamite should be stored somewhere outside of the town.
The magazine was built in 1859, safely separated from the town by a deep gorge. Built on double brick foundations, and the roof was double brick. This interesting dome shape was to deflect any potential explosion upwards, and along the roof line is a massive lightning rod to take any sparks down to the ground. All the fixtures are copper, and even the floor has wooden nails to stop any sparks.
Reef mining soon became the main source of gold. The new technique of hydraulic sluicing became common, and as a result, an estimated 1,400 kilometres of water races were constructed around and through the town to facilitate the process. The most ambitious of these hydro-engineering projects involved draining the natural dam on the other side of town. The theory was that large amounts of alluvial gold lay at the bottom of the dam amongst the accumulated gravel.
The challenge was to drain the lake and extract all the gold. One mining company's unprecedented solution was to tunnel right underneath the town. The funds for the project were raised by a float on the London Stock Exchange. Certainly in Australia of the day, this difficult engineering project had no equal. It called for a tunnel nearly 1 kilometre long, 2 metres high, 1.5 metres wide, through the toughest rock in the country. Work started in 1876. It was to take 3 years to complete. That's 1 metre a day.
It proved to be a very wise investment for the shareholders, however. The Rocky Mountain Extended Gold Sluicing Company installed more sluice boxes inside the tunnel and collected millions of dollars worth of gold, right up until the tunnel's closure in 1910. With all this gold, it was not surprising that bushrangers soon became part of Beechworth's day-to-day dramas. One particular family was to have a lasting relationship with the law in the town. Ned Kelly's association with Beechworth Prison began early and was all too frequent. He was held here for the first time as a 16-year-old, accused of receiving a stolen horse. He was to farewell his mentor, the legendary bushranger Harry Power here, and met future Kelly gang members Joe Byrne and Steve Hart within these walls. In fact, his whole family spent an inordinate amount of time in Beechworth Prison. Brother James, 8 years. Brother Dan, 6 years. Even Ned's mother Ellen was tried at Beechworth Courthouse and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. During the trial, public support for Kelly was so strong here that the government feared a mass break-in would secure his release. The gates of the Beechworth jail were changed from wood to these massive iron doors to keep Kelly in and Kelly gang sympathisers out.
Because an impartial local jury couldn't be found, the trial here in Beechworth was adjourned and reconvened at the Supreme Court in Melbourne some time later. Kelly had to face Judge Redmond Barry, who coincidentally had locked his mother away 2 years earlier.
Order in the court. Foreman of the jury, have you reached your verdict?
We have, Your Honour.
What is your verdict?
Guilty.
He took little time in his deliberations and immediately sentenced Ned Kelly to death by hanging. Corruption and conflicts with authorities seem to have been part of this town's fabric in those early days. Largesse in politics is nothing new. In fact, it would appear it was present from the very beginning in the case of Beechworth.
In 1855, Daniel Cameron, long-time activist for miners' rights, was elected to the state's first Legislative Council, representing this district, the Ovens electorate. To celebrate, he rode his horse down the main street of Beechworth as part of a triumphal grand parade. Legend has it that his horse was shod with a pair of these golden horseshoes, supplied by Big Johnson, who had the biggest gold mining lease in the whole district. Obviously, Big Johnson was after a few favours from this new MP. I better give these back. This was the vault where all the district's gold was stored to keep it safe from bushrangers like the Kelly gang. I think our horseshoes will be safe here.
Another golden story in Beechworth's history involves not a horse, but a cart. And these two blokes. It's Anzac Day 1935, and two of Beechworth's more notorious citizens, local garage proprietor Tom Parkinson and the licensee of the Post Office Hotel Tony Evans, were having a few beers. £20 says you can't push me to Mount Buffalo Chalet in a wheelbarrow, says Evans to Parkinson. Bet you I can, was his response. And so began an adventure that has entered the folklore of the town. They both began training, the world's first wheelbarrow fitted with a pneumatic tyre was created, and 3 weeks later they set off. They had 8 days to achieve their feat. After 7 days, a few stops at some local pubs, and battling the snow, the chalet at Mount Buffalo was reached. A distance of 70 kilometres, and a local legend was cast. Just one of the many here in Beechworth.
Hey,
Scotty, how was the ride?
excellent. Great town.
Now, Scotty, how about a sporting wager?
Yeah?
I bet you £26 I can push you to the next town.
All right.
Deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Comfy? Good. Must be a Beechworth thing. So, how far is it to the next icon town? How long have you been pushing your own barrow there, Darren?